The 2022 World Cup was one of the best World Cups in recent history, with an unforgettable final, and Messi finally reaching the milestone he's been chasing his whole career. We also can't forget Morocco's inspiring semi-final appearance, and Brazil being knocked out in the quarterfinals. It had all the excitement and drama anyone could ask for. Although you hear a lot about the tournament itself, most of the time, the World Cup qualifiers get overlooked by many fans. The qualifiers can be just as interesting as the tournament itself. And there is no better example than this than a certain match that was played in the Asian qualifiers for the Qatari edition of the world's most prestigious trophy. Group H had seen two countries with a rough history go against each other. South and North Korea had been drawn into the same group. The history between these two countries is a well-known story, but I'll dive into the basics of the whole thing. South and North Korea used to be one nation until it was annexed and taken over by Japan in 1910. During the end of World War II, the Soviet Union would declare war on Japan and march into Korea. The idea of occupation of Korea by the Soviets didn't go over too well by the United States. So they came to an agreement with the Soviets, coming to the 38th parallel north, where the north half of the country became occupied by the USSR, and the south half would be occupied by the USA. This would effectively split the country into half, and it wouldn't be long before the war would break out. 1950 would be the beginning of the Korean War, where the North would invade their southern counterparts and almost succeed, until the United Nations force, led by the USA, came to defend South Korea. Not going too much into the war itself, as this is a football channel at the end of the day, it ended in a ceasefire in 1953. A buffer zone called the Korean DMZ would be created as a result, which is one of the highly guarded borders all around the world even to this day. With high tensions between the two countries, you would think that sporting events would not be held between them. But actually, it would help ease tensions between the two countries, where they would even come together and walk out under the same flag in the 2018 Olympics. Now that we glossed over a very brief history of these two countries, the 2022 World Cup qualifying group would see South Korea, Lebanon, Turkmenistan, Sri Lanka, and finally North Korea be in a group. And both countries would start off the group well, with South Korea winning their first two games, defeating Turkmenistan 2-0 and then demolishing Sri Lanka at home 8-0. These results had seen them at the top of their group. The North Koreans wouldn't be any slackers either, winning 2-0 against Lebanon and then traveling to Sri Lanka and defeating them 1-0. This would set the stage for the third match day, where South Korea would travel to Pyongyang. The weird circumstances would begin as soon as they were set to travel. They all had to leave their telephones in the South Korean embassy in Beijing before entering North Korea. The South Korean team would arrive at their hotel in Pyongyang known as the Koryo Hotel, and they had seemingly been the only people at the hotel. They had no outside contact and were not allowed to leave freely unless it was for training and the match. And this match would be held on the 15th of October in 2019 at the, excuse me if I get this wrong, Kim Sung-II Stadium? With a capacity of 50,000, the South Korean team was awaiting an electric atmosphere, only to show up to the stadium and see that no fans had been allowed in, so they would be playing in front of nobody. And the thing is, North Korea had not told this to anyone before the match. It had been a shock to everybody. And what's even worse is North Korea had denied entry to media outlets and refused to stream the game live to the public. The president of FIFA, Gianni Infantino, would actually attend the match and said he was disappointed to see no fans in the stands. Still, the game would be carried on, and it wouldn't be your run-of-the-mill football match. The match would be filled with aggression and tension from the very first minute. Heung-min Son would later state in an interview, the opponents were very rough, and there were moments where very abusive language was exchanged. The South Korean manager would add on and state that the North Koreans were waging a war, violently swinging their elbows and hands and driving into opponents knee first when competing for balls in the air. I have never seen something like this in soccer before, said the manager. The game was a tough battle for both sides, and the scoreline would reflect that. Finishing 0-0, each side would grab a point. Even though the South Korean team was stronger on paper, they had let the aggressive play of the North Koreans get into their heads, which even Son later admitted. This would be the first game featuring both Koreas in North Korea in 30 years, as they usually played outside the country in a more neutral location, such as China. But the interesting story wouldn't end there, After the game, the North Koreans handed the South a DVD with the match on it to broadcast to their viewers. A DVD in 2019. And upon further inspection, the DVD wasn't even able to be used because of the poor video quality. The South Koreans would touch down safely back into South Korea and be greeted with many people awaiting their arrival, as well as media ready to interview them. Sun stated that he was just happy no one was injured and they all returned home safely. And for North Korea, this would be their last game of their group, as they would withdraw from the 2022 World Cup qualifiers over concerns of a certain disease in 2020. I think we all know which one I'm talking about. So they would never get to be able to play South Korea and Seoul in the return fixture, and all of their games would be voided. Honestly, I think that having them in the same group is a pretty weird thing to do. Maybe they shouldn't be playing each other, as it could be dangerous, just as the South Koreans said. But I'm interested to hear what you guys think. Should North Korea and South Korea even be allowed to play in World Cup qualifiers? What do you think of this odd game? Please let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more videos like this one.